Here we are on the front of our Venture Stratus. We're going to do a walkthrough on this like you would get on the data delivery on your unit. We're going to walk around, talk about all the components on here, give you an operational explanation for them, how they work, and a few tips and tricks along the way. If you want more information on these components, or if yours differs in brand name, maybe you have a BAL tongue jack instead of this one, you can find those kind of videos on our Helpful Hacks section playlist of our Great American RV YouTube channel. Make sure you like, follow, share, do all those things, support, subscribe, all that stuff so we can keep making these videos for you. So we're going to start in the front of our Stratus here. On the front we have our 7-way plug. It's going to transfer all our turn signal lights, all that stuff. We also have a battery charge line on here that's going to charge our battery while we're traveling down the road, pulling off the alternator of that towing vehicle. And then we also have our brake control wire that'll work off of the brake control. When you hit your brakes, it sends a signal down here to the brakes on the trailer. Now, speaking of brakes, we do have our cable right here that's hooked to our breakaway box. That cable should be looped or clipped onto our receiver hitch where our safety chains hook up. Not to our hitch itself or anything like that. It needs to be hooked to the safety chain hook of the receiver hitch. Reason being is if that hitch fails, the idea is for this pin to go with the truck, be pulled out of that breakaway box, and it's going to activate the brakes on our trailer right here. That's only going to happen if we have a good solid 12-volt battery on our trailer that's charged up and usable, because it will need power to activate those brakes. Besides that, we need to make sure that that pin is inserted in that box at all times. We never want it to come out unless it's an emergency situation like that. Otherwise, your brakes will be locked in when you don't want them to be. So we also have our 12-volt jack here in the front. It does have an override on it. We have a little black plug here on the top. We can pull that off, put a crank handle in there, crank it up and down to get us out of a jam. We do have a red wire that follows down to our battery. It has an inline fuse in it most of the time. We can check, make sure that fuse isn't bad, check, make sure our battery is charged up. If not, try plugging in that 7-way. All else fails, go ahead and override it with that manual crank. Behind that, we have our dual propane tanks operated by our dual propane regulator. A dual propane regulator has a selector switch on it, and you can go ahead and choose which tank you want to be your primary. Now, you'll have both tanks on. That primary is the one that it will pull off when you're using your gas, and when it runs dry, it will automatically start to pull off of that secondary tank. Your gauge on there will show red at that point, saying that that primary tank is empty, and then you can take that selector switch, turn it over to that other tank that it's being used now, and get the previous primary tank refilled or replaced. Behind that, we have our battery storage center as well as our battery disconnect. That battery disconnect is important when we store our unit. If we are storing it plugged in, or anytime we are plugged in, if we're camping with it, whatever, we need that battery disconnect on. If we are storing it unplugged, we need to turn the battery disconnect off. That'll shut down all the 12-volt power in the unit, and it'll help conserve the power on that battery while we have it stored, so we got some juice left in it whenever we want to go hook up. On our driver's side, we do have pass-through access right here to our front compartment. We're also going to have our black tank flush and our docking station. Our black tank flush, we'll go over more information on that whenever we hit our dump station in the rear. For now, we're going to go over more information on that docking station. So here on our docking station, we can see this blue lever right here. This is going to coordinate with our diagram right here. If we want to fill our tank, which is that onboard water storage, and that we want to take with us, because in the event we are going somewhere that has no water hookup, we would want to go ahead and hook our water hose up to this, and then we can fill that tank. Now, if we do have water connection wherever we're at, we go ahead and turn it to city water, and then that water will go straight to our fixtures. This vent right below it is just a vent for that fresh tank. That way that air can escape out of there. We have a quick connect right here that will provide us with that blue coil hose we can hook up right here and have a spray port with hot and cold. And then we have our 2 coax connections right here for satellite and cable. Down below our docking station, over to the right of our stabilizer jack, we're going to see that blue line with a valve on it. That line is to drain out that fresh tank system. If we don't want the added extra weight on there, we're not using it, whatever, we leave it in there too long, that water has become stagnant. So we don't want to have water in there if we don't need it. That's where we're going to go to drain it out. We're also going to have our stabilizer jack right here. That stabilizer jack is a stabilizer only, not a leveler. So we don't want to put a ton of weight on here. It has a weight rating on it, much less than the weight of the camper, so we need to make sure that we're using it properly. Whenever we back up our unit in order to level it, we want to purchase those stacker blocks, which are available at our camping store. We go ahead, stack them up, put them under our tires as we're backing up to level our unit from left to right. Then we use our ton jack to level it from front to back. Once we're done with that, we come run these stabilizers down to the ground and just put a little bit of pressure on them. And we want to make sure we keep a diamond shape form as much as we can for this type of jack to work properly. In order to do that, we may need to get some extra stacker blocks if it's too far away from the ground in order to try to keep that form. If we don't do that, these aren't going to work very efficiently. If we overextend them basically where that jack is straight up and down, number one, it's not going to stabilize your unit. Number two, it's going to break the welds up at the top. Once you start moving around in here, that jack's going to break and we're going to end up having a failure, and manufacturers are not going to replace it due to damage or misuse on that jack, so that would be customer pay. We also don't want to put a ton of weight on it because it will strip out this worm gear on here as well. So make sure we're using this properly. We do have other videos on that in our helpful hacks section. Make sure we're using it to stabilize, not level, is the most important thing. You will see a vent on the side of your slide out. That vent does have two tabs on it. Those two tabs can be open and locked, and that is for our hood range vent over our stove top. If we want to go ahead and close that when we store our unit so no insects can build any nests in there, we can. If we want to use it over our stove vent, we need to make sure it's open so that air will actually ventilate out. All right, our slide out here is 12 volt operated. It's a rack and pinion system. The motor is in the underbelly. It does have an override on the other side, which is a little rod that sticks out with a bolt on it. We can go ahead and override it by cranking that in with an impact or a crank handle. In the event that it has this in a pinch, we need to get out of a jam, we can do that. Also under that slide out, we're gonna see our outlet for our dump station. A little bit further back, we're gonna see two handles, our gray handle and our black. That is for our two tanks. So we have our gray tank, which is our shower and sink water on our unit, everything going into it, fairly clean water. If we have the hookup at the campsite and the hose hooked up, we can leave that valve open all the time, just let that water drain out so we're not having to come out after a few showers and drain that system when it's full. Our black tank, however, is from our toilet, that's sewage. We need to keep that valve closed until we are ready to dump because we always want to make sure we keep water in that system. If we don't, the solids in there will dry up, causing dry tank, and that will cause a major repair later on down the road. So this is the dumping procedure that we need to do. We're ready to dump our black tank, make sure that hose is hooked up, pull that black tank valve, drain everything out. While we are draining it, we hook a hose up to that black tank flush in the front. That will lead to a water jet on the other side of this tank and help push that stuff down the valve and flush that system out. Once we are satisfied with flushing out that system, we shut off our black tank flush, come over here, close the valve, and then we go to our toilet on the inside, hold that pedal down, and add several gallons of fresh, clean water in that system. This will help kind of clean it out while you're traveling down the road too, knock any debris down off the wall. We also want to add our chemicals in there to help degrade whatever deposits may be left in there. It's all going to be a little small stuff. Most of it's going to flush out with that black tank system. We always want to keep water in that system so nothing can solidify, and regularly add chemicals so it can degrade whatever might be in there. On the back corner of our unit, we have our Fragati tankless water heater system powered by 12 volts, heated by propane. Operation for that will be going over on the inside when we get to the controller. We're also going to notice another stabilizer jack. We'll have that on all four corners of the unit. On the rear of our unit, we are pre-wired for that Furrion backup camera system up there. If we pull the 4 screws, plug in our camera system and tighten up 4 screws, that's all it takes for the upgrade on this system. You can go ahead and watch behind you while you're traveling down the road or backing up. It's powered by our running lights. We'll go ahead and kick those on our towing vehicle to add power to it. It's just that simple, right? We also have our factory supplied ladder right here. That ladder is to gain access to our roof. Why, you ask? Because we need to check our sealant every 60 to 90 days. We also need to check the sealant around all of our items like our windows, our lights, our trim down the sides, all that stuff. Silicone, roof sealant, all that every 60 to 90 days. Your owner's manual says so in order to stay in warranty. They are not going to participate in water leaks if we're not maintaining our unit. So please, please, please make sure we're maintaining our unit, because that is the most neglected thing, whether you have it under a cover or not. Check those sealants. You're checking for cracking, peeling, deterioration. If so, clean it, reseal over it so no water can get into that camper. Monitor that regularly, take a close look at it. If you're not sure how to do it, bring it to the shop and have it done for you. We also need to clean that roof every 2 years or so, get the dirt and everything off of it, also inspect it on a regular basis. Once again, we also need to inspect it after trips. Make sure no low-lying tree limbs scrape that rubber and open a hole in it, causing any damage to that rubber, once again allowing water entry into our unit. Beyond that, we also have our low point drains down here at the bottom. That's that red and blue line sticking out under there. That is for winterization. We want to drain the water out of our system. We want to prep it and get it ready for that winter time. There's more information in your owner's manual as well as a video on Hap's Helpful Hacks. We have our 50 amp twist lock power supply plug right here. We plug it in there, turn it to the right, tighten up that ring right there to make sure that the kiddos can't pull it out when they're running around over here, nobody tripping on wires, so on and so forth. Want to plug this in first, then plug it into our shore power. That way we don't cause any arcing right here. Also want to make sure our AC system is off anytime we're plugging it in or unplugging it. Down below that, we see that receiver hitch right there. That is for an added basket or a bike rack back here for more storage. That is not intended to tow your boat, trailer, anything like that. Behind you, you'll notice there's no tow hooks for the chains as well as no lights to be able to plug in there as well. On the passenger side of our unit, more access to our pass-through bay right here. Little light switch in there to turn the underglow that's under our unit, little blue lights off and on. We also have our tire link system by LCI pre-wired in there. If we want to purchase the monitor and the sensors to hook up, we can go ahead and monitor our tires while we're traveling down the road. Below that, we have our other stabilizer jack right there. Behind me and above me, we have our 12 volt powered awning and our 12 volt powered lights. All 12 volt power components will have a fuse panel on the inside. Also going to have a few other 12 volt breakers and stuff around on your frames as well for all of your 12 volt system. Now our 12 volt powered awning is a sunshade only. It is not intended to keep you dry during a rainstorm. You don't want to keep it out during a windstorm, and you don't want to keep it out when you're leaving your camper for an extended period of time. Roll that in anytime you're in doubt, because the wind will take that in a hot second and it will be a lot of damage to your unit, and it will be filed under insurance, not warranty, so that's coming out of your pocket. Make sure you're being cautious with that. Beyond that, you are going to get a little light dew on there, maybe a little bit of drizzle and stuff. I get it. A little light rain, you're going to probably keep it out. We're also going to have some AC condensation that comes off of the roof, probably gets on there. The main thing is we can't allow that water to puddle on our awning. If we do, that awning will collapse. So what we need to do is we need to lean our awning to the front or the rear. Both of these awning arms operate the same on the front and the rear, so you only need to do one of them. So pick which one you want to do, grab it right here, pull down, and now our awning is tilted and the water will run off of that awning and not puddle up in the middle. When we're ready to run that awning in, just push it up, hit the button, ready to go. Down under the middle of our awning, we have our Suburban furnace right there, 12 volt powered and gas operated to go ahead and heat it. We also have our TV backer for that outside TV, GFCI protected outlet right there. All of our wet locations are going to have those GFCI protected outlets. We'll talk about the main one and where to reset it when we get to our bathroom. And we have our cable connection for our outside TV. Right under our entry door, you're going to notice a bolt sticking out. You're also going to notice our spare tire. That bolt will operate the lift for that spare tire system. To the left of it, we're going to see that override for that slide out on the other side. On our entry door, we are going to notice some resistance on that door. That is for our friction controlled hinges right there to keep the wind from slamming that door against the wall or slamming it shut. Or our kids at that matter, whichever one, it becomes the nuisance, right? Our steps are our solid steps, real easy to operate. When we do operate, we need to make sure that our door is open all the way. When we lift these steps up and store them, lock them in right there, good to go. Pulling them down, pull that blue valve lever right there, and we go ahead and drop them down. Now, important thing about our steps is we need to level our unit left to right, front to back. Remember, we need to level our steps too. So remember, as we have them up right here, we have these silver tabs. These silver tabs are meant to level our steps. We can push them down and operate those legs up and down. So kind of have them in this position here, see if they're level, and we pull that tab and adjust our legs up and down to get it level. It's important for two reasons. We want a solid flush threshold right here If we don't do that, that door is not going to close properly and it's going to have some gaps in it. And we also want to make sure that when we open and close that door, the bottom of the door isn't hitting the frame of the steps right here, causing any damage there as well. Right when you walk into your entry door, you do have your control center right here. This is a generic panel, so we're going to notice that we do have multiple tanks on here, even though your system only has one black and one gray. But when you push them, they are going to light up. It just doesn't mean anything, right? We also have tank heaters on here. That is for that black and gray tank system. During cold weather, we want to kick those on to keep the liquids from freezing in there. We have our 12-volt water pump. That is for that onboard storage tank that we have on our system that we can fill up there in the front. When we want to use that water, because we don't have a city water connection, we kick it on. It's an on-demand pump, so it's only going to operate whenever our water system is on at the faucets. So if we're not using the water on any of the faucets and we hear that pump running, so that means that our fresh tank is empty or we have a leak in our system. Either way, we want to shut it off. We don't want to burn that pump up for short if the fresh tank is empty. And then of course, if we have a leak, we are seeing water expelled out of there, so we want to investigate that. Once again, down here we hit these buttons: fresh tank, black tank, so on and so forth. And our battery power, we can see the lights light up there at the top and let us know what those levels are. We have our awning extend and retract, as well as our awning light, and then we have our interior lights as well operated there. And then of course our slide out. All 12-volt powered stuff. Once again, we can check our 12-volt fuse panel if we have any issues with any of these items. Not much to go over in the front bedroom area. We do have storage under our bed right here. We also have a TV backer location here where we would mount our TV. We also have our upgradable option for our King Connect, which if we want to add a router system in here, we can have Wi-Fi with us wherever we go. We can do that. And then we have our coax plate for our auxiliary satellite option or our cable antenna option. So if we are scanning for cable channels, you're going to see a little light on here with a button. We want that button off, that light off, and that means we have the connection to our coax there at the campground hooked up. We're scanning for cable channels on our TV, and that light is off so it doesn't scramble the channels. If we have antenna, we're shooting for antenna cables, we want that light on. That is a 12-volt boost. That helps expand the range of antenna channels that you can pick up in the area that you're at. So light on for antenna, light off for cable. Talked about our TV system already. That button will work for all of our coax ports, so it's only that one that we need to go to turn the antenna boost off and on. Our dinette booth can drop into more sleeping space. We remove those poles, take this down, put it on the bumpers, and then move our cushions around to add more sleeping there. We have our ceiling assembly for our AC up here. This is where our filter is. We can unscrew the two black tabs on there and change that filter out when necessary, so we're not restricting airflow to our AC, and it can work efficiently. You'll notice the vents up in the ceiling too. That's where your cool air is going to come out. When you operate your furnace, that's going to come out of those vents in the floor for heat. Speaking of all that, we have our Coleman digital thermostat right there. For our AC system, we'll go over that, how it controls our cool and our heat. And then we also have our LevelMate Pro system right here. We'll go over the quick brief operation of that. All right, this is our thermostat for our AC system. When we click that button once, it'll give us the option for mode. Our first mode is cool. We hit that button again, and then we can choose between high or low auto or high and low all the time. So high and low all the time will keep that fan running constantly, even though that compressor is not on. Auto will shut that fan off whenever our compressor is turned off. Once we go ahead and initiate those two items, our AC will kick on, and we can choose our desired temperature by turning that knob right there. And the larger number on that screen is going to be our room temperature. So here we're set at 63 and our actual temperature is 83. Cool on is going to show you that that system is initiating, and that system will kick on. Our next option on there, if we hit that button twice again, is heat. When we go ahead and click it right there, it will bring on the heat, show our room temperature as well as our set to temperature. Our heat is only going to come out of the lower areas. It's not going to come out of that rooftop AC. If you have air blowing out of that rooftop area, then we want to make sure that we don't have the fan on high or low on that cool option. So we would go back to our cool, and we would check right here and make sure it's on auto. Our last option on here is cool and heat. In this case, we can go ahead and do the same thing, choose our fan options, just have a set temp in between the furnace and the AC. It will keep that temperature set at that 72 degree mark. Now in order to turn that system completely off, click it twice again and we can go to off. So we're going to walk you through how to operate this LevelMate Pro. We can see that our adjustments are right there in front of us. If we drop the front down, of course we'll see the front drop, so on and so forth. But the objective is to continue to level this unit until we start to see that 0 come to life. We get a green and then we are good to go. We can also set our hitch position. So once we are disconnected from our truck, we can see down here at the bottom, we can hit set, and that will set our hitch position right there. If we click yes, hitch position is set. So now after we have leveled our unit out, let's say we don't want to play that guessing game, right? So we bring our jacks up and we can control that front tongue jack. We hit recall here and it will adjust and let you know where that original hitch height was, and you can go up and down until you zero out there. Then you won't have to worry about trying to guess where that hitch height actually is. That wraps up everything on our LevelMate Pro. Below all of that, just outside our bathroom, we'll see our COLP detector. We have a little green light on there glowing, letting us know that system is powered up. This is hardwired into our battery system, so it's going to operate all the time, notify you of any cautious gases in your unit. We need to test that alarm on there by pushing that button, making sure that audible alarm system does work. It does have an expiration on here. We need to make sure that we check that and we replace it whenever necessary. We're also going to have smoke alarms in our unit. That smoke alarm is operated by a 9-volt battery. We need to test the audible alarm on that and change that battery out every now and again as well. On our slide out, we have our recliner system, manual recline, pull that cable to recline. We have our heated seats as well as our vibrating seats, massaging seats as well. In our kitchen, we have our 12-volt Furrion refrigerator right here. We have our freezer up top. We have a knob down here that will go from off to cold to colder. We also have that off-grid option as well. That off-grid option will reduce the power that compressor is using off of your 12-volt system. We use that whenever we're not plugged into shore power or anything like that. We're trying to conserve that energy. Now when we do that, we need to keep in mind that that compressor isn't working as hard, so we want to reduce the amount of times we open and close that fridge. Otherwise our goods aren't going to stay as cold. Now we need to make sure that we are defrosting our refrigerator. If we do not, that water that defrosts from our freezer right here will leak out, damage our wood components around our fridge. So anytime we store our unit, we shut this system down, defrost it, wipe all that water out, open the doors, air it out. This will also reduce the risk for mold and mildew in that system too, and it'll also reduce the risk for damage around it. Manufacturers don't cover that kind of damage. Consider customer maintenance to defrost and clean out your fridge properly. Moving down the line, we have our 110 operated microwave right there, as well as our hood range vent, 12-volt operated. We talked about that vent outside on the slide out. It needs to be open for this to actually ventilate out. We have our 3-burner stove down at the bottom. That is a Furrion. We have our glass cooktop. Add more counter space when it's down. This is how it needs to be whenever we are in travel. When we are ready to use it, flip that glass up, pick our designated burner, make sure our propane tanks are on, of course. Turn it to that flame icon and manually light it. Once it lights, you are ready to cook. You can go ahead and turn that knob to the designated temperature that you want. When we are done, we go ahead and kick it off. We'll notice that that little red light on there kicks on, lets us know that gas is flowing in our system. We can flip that switch, turn them blue, and it will still turn red when we operate it. Now, a common thing that happens with our propane systems is you'll get air trapped in those lines. This happens when we change our propane tanks out, or we just pulled it out of storage and those tanks were off, which is very common that customers turn off those propane tanks when you store it, right? So air can end up in your system. Very easy to fix. We come over, we turn our propane tanks on, we come over to our stove and we just light it. It may take a little time depending on where your stove is in line on that propane system, but once it lights, let it burn for about 30 to 60 seconds, get that nice crisp blue flame on that system, and you more than likely got most of the air out of that system. We want to make sure we do that before we operate things like our furnace or a tankless water heater. This will reduce the risk for those things going into a fault over simple air in the system. You only need to do it that first time whenever you crank those tanks up. Once you've done that first time, until you turn them off again or change those tanks, you don't really have to worry about it. Down below that, we have our oven right here. That oven will be operated off our knob on the right. turn it to the flame icon. But on this one, we have to push that knob down for that gas to flow out of that orifice down there. Then we manually crank it up. Now this one's going to take a little bit longer, because even though you bled the air out of the system the first time you light that stove after bleeding, after having air trapped in that system, it's going to take a little time because that orifice is really small. So it may take a manual lighter under there, or you can keep cranking it right here, whichever one you want to do. Just make sure you keep pushing that knob down, otherwise that gas won't emit out. Once that pilot does light down there, hold it down for about 15 to 30 seconds, and then what we're doing is warming up that thermocouple. Once that thermocouple is warmed up, just let off the knob and we can turn to our desired temperature. You should see that burner rail light up, and we can go ahead and cook. If everything went out, go back to that flame icon, push it down again, and manually crank it until it lights. Hold it down for a little bit longer, and then go ahead and give it another shot. Our button to the right, if you flip it down, it also turns on that light down in the oven. Down here at the bottom, we see our 110 breaker panel, all labeled nice and neat, so we know what everything controls. We also have our 12-volt fuses, and it's labeled as well, so we know what those control. If we have any issues, we want to come here first and check and make sure nothing's tripped and nothing is blown. We have our 110 GFCI operated outlet over there. That is going to control all those outlets in those wet locations. It has a reset button on it. We want to reset that if our outlets are not working. That will generally not work because an outlet got wet, or because we overamped it. We have too many griddles, hair dryers, heating element, controlled items plugged into those outlets. It will overamp and trip that system. So if that happens, we go over there, we push that reset button right there, and it should go ahead and kick everything back on. If it doesn't, we want to go unplug some of those items off of there, double check the outlets to make sure they're not wet, and then try to reset that system again. All right, in our bathroom, we have our shower, hot cold faucet on off on the shower head, and we also have a vent in here. Anytime we use our shower, we want to go ahead and kick that vent fan on, help pull the humidity out here and reduce the risk for mold and mildew. We have our Frugati tankless water heater in here. We'll go over that right now. Our water heater system right here is pretty cut and dry. Turn it off and on, hit that power button. Change between Fahrenheit and Celsius, hit that button right there. And to change our set temperature, which is going to be the temperature of our water output, we can control that with our arrows right here. On-demand system, we turn our hot water on and it will initiate, turn on the flame, and begin to heat that water. And lastly is our toilet. Our toilet has a foot pedal to operate it, pretty simple to use. We're only going to put 4 things in our toilet. Number 1, liquids. Number 2, solids. And number 3, RV toilet paper only. And number 4 are chemicals. So let's talk about that for a second. Number 1, it's just liquids. We can go ahead and hit that pedal, flush it down to our black tank. Number 2 is that sewage solids, right? We need to make sure that we are adding water to that bowl when we go to flush that. That way there's enough water in there to flush those solids down the system. In order to do that, just barely depress that pedal right there. It will start to fill that bowl up with water, and then we can go ahead and flush our system. Otherwise, that stuff can get clogged up in the pipes. So make sure we're doing that. RV toilet paper only, we talked about that. That makes sure that that degrades properly in that tank. We use anything else that can cause some clogging. Our chemicals help degrade all that stuff, and of course, make it smell nice.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us. And keep watching here at Great American RV SuperStores, where we bring the how-to you.